Okay, despite back-to-back 7-6 seasons, my expectations for Rutgers football next season is to be knocking on the door of that college football playoff. Can I be for real? Let's get to it. So my expectations have changed a little bit for next year. Rutgers, after back-to-back 7-6 seasons, with a schedule next year that's going to be much tougher in the Big Ten, and also at a conference with a couple of good teams in Ohio, Miami of Ohio, 10-3 and 9-5, respectively. You might think I'm crazy. Rutgers college football playoff. We're doomed for yet another 6-6, possibly 5-7 season if we lose all 4 games against Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, and lose to a peer or two in the Big Ten. However, I've come to this conclusion after watching the college football playoffs. Another 6-6, 7-6 season is unacceptable. It's year 6 of Coach Schiano 2. And if we would go 7-6 again next year, 6-6, get a bowl win, 6-6, and we get a bowl loss, we can't look upon that as progress because of how bad the program was, and Chris Ash isn't here anymore. It's a pretty low bar, but we got to get above it. With Arizona State, Indiana, Boise, and SMU all being in the playoffs, there should be a mandate for us to be knocking on the door of the college football playoffs next season. I've talked about this a whole bunch. We've made progress. We've made progress with the program. We've made progress in recruiting success in the way of, at least as far as rankings, getting more eyeballs on the program, media spotlight and perception, and that all leads to good feelings about and sentiment, but not from actual results. But moving from bad or mediocrity in college football is possible. Arizona State, Boise, Indiana, SMU, they of the death penalty program. You can't have a much worse culture than losing culture than suffering the death penalty and having your football program banned. They were in the college football playoff. And to get things straight, not saying got to be Ohio State, not saying we got to be Michigan, Alabama, we don't have to be the 800-pound gorilla of college football. The teams that I just mentioned, Arizona State, Boise, SMU, and Indiana, do not have as highly rated recruiting classes as we do. Went back and I looked at the past 3 classes. To see where they stood. Yes, Indiana turned around in a year, but you had guys that were there a couple years before being taken over by Kurt Cignetti. This is why I talk about it's not just about culture, it has to be about scheme and coaching and not just the intangible things. So when we look at the 2022 recruiting class, Arizona State, 103rd. Boise, 62nd. I've used Boise a lot. They're just emblematic of a 3-star program that just coaches these guys into being good teams. Madsen was a 3-star. And Ashton GT, for the most part, was a 3-star. I think 247 had him as a 4-star. So Arizona State, 103rd. Boise, 62nd. Rutgers, 33rd. Oddly enough, Indiana in that class had a good class. They were 22nd. That was an outlier because you'll see in a moment the rest of their classes were not that good. Post-COVID, it looked like Tom Allen had got them back on track and looked like the preseason might have even been ranked, but then just fell into the toilet. But nonetheless, 2023 recruiting class. Arizona State, number. Now these are composites. Some recruiting services will have these numbers a little higher, some a little lower, yada yada yada. Arizona State, 2023, ranked 50th. Boise, once again, 70th. Indiana, 68th. Rutgers, 57th. Better than all of them. Last year's class, 2020-24. Arizona State, 48th. Now, their quarterback, Sam Levitt, I'm almost positive we saw against Michigan State. He was a transfer from Michigan State. And I believe he played in the slop and the mess at SHI Stadium when we had that crazy comeback. But, you know, he was another guy who was high 3-star. Maybe some had him as a 4-star as a prospect, and he was a 3-star as a transfer. Cam Scottabo, you know, who was a star of that bowl game loss to Texas in overtime, he was unranked. Unranked running back, 3-star as a transfer. He had 143 yards rushing and another 42-yard touchdown pass. So Arizona State, 2024, 48th. Boise, 64th. SMU, 107th. Indiana, 65th. Rutgers, 36th. So once again, 2023 cycle, Rutgers had better recruiting classes than all of those playoff teams. 2024 cycle, we had better recruiting classes than all those recruiting teams. 2022, we had better recruiting classes than all but one in Indiana. 2025, the most recent recruiting class going into next year. How are these teams set up for the future? Arizona State, 48th. Boise, 74th. SMU. So Arizona State and SMU both, going to make a jump after winning seasons. SMU, 33rd. Indiana, still just kind of okay, 45th. And Rutgers, we're around number 30, and our Rivals has them around 28. These are 247 composites. So in every recruiting class, starting in 2022 to next year's class, we were better than every one of those teams in every year, except the exception being Indiana in 2022. And we're not even close to sniffing a playoff. But you might say, hey, Arizona State, the Pac-12, Big 12, not that competitive. Boise, Mountain West. I think they're going to the Pac-12, right? Or they've been invited or whatever. SMU, the AAC, the ACC. Arizona's destroyed number 18. Iowa State, 45-19. They beat Kansas State by 10 points, common opponent. They almost beat Texas and should have, and were kind of robbed in that game. They outplayed Texas. Up and down the field on them. Boise, despite losing by 17 to Penn State, they kind of hung in there. They turned the ball over. But just when you thought Penn State was going to run away with it, and this is the kind of team Penn State is. They look like they're a national champ on a couple series, and then they just, kick back and let teams get back into the game. That USC game was one of those kind of games. But, Boise hung in there, outgained Penn State 412 to 387. They had more first downs, more time of possession. They only lost to Oregon 37-34 by 3 points. Crushed Washington State, beat number 20 UNLV by 14 points. So there's some good work in there by Boise. SMU, despite losing 38-10, once again, they outperformed Penn State in first downs, time of possession, passing yards. Of course, when you have more turnovers, Coach Shannon likes to say the ball is the program. When you're turning the ball over, you're not going to stand much of a choice. But I'd take it. Losing 38-10 in a playoff game? Maybe not to Penn State, maybe somebody else. They beat ranked Louisville at the time, who had a good season going. Crushed ranked Pitt at the time when they were, I think I said this before, Pitt was like 6-0, 7-0. They were ranked, and then they went on a 5-game losing streak. They had 2 3-point losses. One to ranked Clemson, which is nothing to cry about. And they lost to 3 by 11-2 BYO. So even their losses were kind of close. So for 2025, I want to see marked improvement on the field. I don't care about the recruits, the transfer portal rankings of the recruits. I want to see actual improvement on the field, not just in the perception and the marketing aspect. I want us knocking on that door, and I want to see us kick it in for once. That will mean we're going to have to get it. We talked about previously how we're going to have to get a big win against somebody with our tough schedule next year to make it feel like the season or the program is making progress. Mike from a Night Report said, got to get a win, go out and beat Penn State, and I agree. But you know what? Go out, beat Penn State, beat Iowa. If you lost to Oregon and Ohio State and it's kind of competitive, that's not going to be held against you that much. So beat everybody else. Beat Ohio. Beat Miami of Ohio. Beat all your peers in the Big Ten. Let's have people talking about Rutgers like they talked about Indiana this year. That improvement next year means we're going to have to beat somebody good for once. Our best win this year was against 7-5 Minnesota. And they could be 7-6 if they lose to Virginia Tech in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Our Tech is 6-6. So if they win, you have 2 teams that are 7-6. And those will be our best wins, 2 7-6 teams. So let's go out there and not be Rutgers. We're going to keep chopping. We're going to keep grinding. Okay, great. Keep grinding. Go out there and beat somebody. Our recruiting class is around number 30 right now. Our transfer rank is around number 44. That'll probably change come April. Let's get going. When you have that amount of talented players, you should be doing better. Offensively, I want to focus less on predictable RPO runs between the tackles. What are we in our run-pass mix? We're like 58-42, 56-44. We got to narrow that gap. We have to make our passing game more efficient and more dynamic and more explosive, where we can run more effectively off the pass without being predictable. Defenses are on their heels and don't know where we're going to go, if we're going to run or throw on a particular series or set of downs or downs. With C.J. Campbell now joining us out of the backfield as a legitimate pass catching threat out of the backfield that we probably haven't had since Brian Leonard. That means I want to see more screens, middle screens, outlet passes to the running backs, wheel routes. I want to see all of that. I want to put pressure on it. We have, for the first time in forever, we have more talent at quarterback, running back, and the wide receiver room than we've had in 15 years. And I want to see that in conjunction with more high percentage passes and not those deep sideline passes when you run it between the tackles on first down. It's now 2nd and 9 and you're throwing deep sideline passes. I want to see more mid-range routes like those drag patterns that we ran with Kenny Fletcher. Transfer Colin Weber would be good for that. Maybe you can run some seam routes, tight end screens, etc., etc. More crossing routes. More short to medium range crossing routes. It's the easiest pass that Joe Montana and the West Coast offense made hay with for forever. And everybody else picked up on it. The Packers, a lot of teams running variations of the West Coast offense. With DT Sheffield coming in, it's probably going to take over Dymir's role. Well, we can get him involved in that role. And if we get some of our new guys, some of our freshmen involved, some of these dynamic guys, and I'll get to in a second how we're going to, and now in the era of the transfer portal, we're going to have to get guys in sooner and playing time earlier. If we can get guys like Sinai DeGraffenreich, Vernon Allen, or Jordan Houston to get reps in games, to give you more weapons out of more different offensive sets and keeping the defense off balance, get these guys to contribute right away. That's what we're going to need to do. Just, running it up the middle to Antoine Raymond. Now it's 2nd and 8, and then we're going to either hand it to Antoine Raymond again, or we're going to throw it deep downfield and it's going to miss, or deep down the middle and we're going to miss. Now it's 3rd and long. Forget that. Let's put pressure on opposing defenses not knowing what we're going to do from play to play. That's what opens up your running game. With Antoine Raymond as running back number 1, C.J. Campbell as 1A, whatever you want to call him, and pass catcher, and Jay Sean as a pass catcher. Mike from the Mike Report, or was it Richie? It was Mike or Richie, one of those guys. Said that Coach Shiano said Jay Sean Benjamin has like the best hands he's ever seen out of a running back. We haven't seen enough. There's not enough data on that yet to make that determination. But if that's the case, and you have Antoine Raymond as your main running threat. CJ Campbell, who can run and pass catch, a la Brian Leonard. And Jay Sean catching the ball out of the backfield. Let's go. Multiple formations, multiple play calls, keeping the defenses off balance. Here, what are they going to do? They're going to run it to the back, throw it to the back. They're going to throw it to the tight end. They're going to go 4 wide. Who's going to get the ball? What are they going to do? That's what I want to see. You know, I don't want to see us barely getting 400 yards against Miami and Ohio and, you know, and scoring 31 points. Run them out of the building. And when we go up against Iowa, let's put their offense on the defensive. Let's make them have to score because they can't stop us on offense. Now the big work to be done next year, and we're not going anywhere unless it gets better, and we all know the defense needs bodies, needs work, needs especially defensive line. Obviously, thing number one is we're going to have to get a DC, and we've mentioned some names in the past. We'll get to that more as time gets closer or they make a hire. We're going to need to hit that portal hard in April. Portal's open for 10 days. Now, Indiana, much of their success was the transfers. 13 or 14 from James Madison. They won with Big Ten with James Madison guys. We're going to have to get, like I previously mentioned, we're going to have to get contributions early from freshmen and transfer portal guys. And Goe and Blue Eli are going to have to contribute right away. As will corner Jacoby Hollywood Henderson. Freshman Michael Clayton at corner. Linebackers Kamar Archie, DJ McClary, Talibi Kaba. Forget the developmental stuff and hoping that 3 years down the road they develop into legitimate Big Ten players that may get drafted in the 5th round. Let's go. Get them reps, get them in there, coach them up. It's a new age. Young guys are going to have to play and play soon. Or at least make plays. Get them in a rotation. And don't waste time on portal guys just because they fit your culture and they're all kind of guys and they want to chop and grind and put in the work and love football. All that stuff's great. Make sure they can make plays right away. Make sure they're productive. This is going to be the thing. If you recruit guys and get guys out of the portal that are productive, and they're productive even if they're productive at lesser conferences or lower levels, there's a good chance their productivity is going to translate. Just put them into positions to win, and they'll be productive. So get to guys, get to work on guys that can be productive and not just potential. Oh, this guy was 4-star in high school, and we're gonna find that. We're gonna develop that untapped potential. Get guys in there who've made plays. Stars, all that stuff doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to get better, make any strides unless the defense gets better. But not only gets better overall, but makes have to do some of the things, and you saw this with Indiana this year, where it wasn't just their offense that was wide open and running and flinging the ball all over. Their defense was surprisingly stout. So if we're going to get better quickly, We're going to have to get that D-line set. And linebackers are now going to have to stuff the run. We're going to have to be run stuffers again. We can't be the team that gets gashed. Too much of that this past year. At the same time, we're also going to have to increase our pressure rates, and sacks. That is an absolute positive. Absolutely has to happen. Again, when you look at Indiana, they didn't just turn it around with a potent offense led by Curtis Rourke, who, by the way, where was he? Out of Ohio. He transferred from Ohio. Oh, boy, Ohio is going to be the bane of our existence. But their elite defensive rankings is probably what put them over the top. Number 3 in points per game. Number 5 in yards per game. Get to work. Forget the developmental stuff. Get guys that are productive, that are good on and off the field, and let's go. We're in a new era. There's no time to wait down the road, hoping that, in 2 or 3 years we get some 8-4 seasons and get to a decent bowl. Got to make an impact right away. The time is now. Let's get going, everybody. Hope you enjoyed a fantastic New Year. January is going to be a big month for Rutgers basketball. January is the season. As Coach likes to say, this week is the XYZ team season. For basketball, January is the season with the Big Ten and ranked teams coming in. Everybody enjoy your week, and we'll see you the next time.